Hello, everybody. We're ready to start our April meeting. I don't think we're live yet. There we go. Now we're live, right? Okay. All right. I take this opportunity to stand and say the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. We'll start out with our secretary's report.
These are the minutes from the March 15 meeting. President Neil Westrick opened the meeting with a pledge to our flag. The secretary's report was read. The treasurer's report was not read due to the absence of the treasurer. Neil circulated the attendance sheet and alerted the assemblage that there are forms to send in to receive society news. Due to confusion in the newsletter regarding fees, several people have paid twice. This is being addressed. Barry Lehman passed away. His private service will be held today. Midge broke her elbow and is not with us today. Lisa Heiler and Shirley Swartz provided cookies. Neil thanked the many people who have volunteered to help the society, the trustees for the use of the building and technical support, Rachel Dilhoff Fudge for communications, Lisa Glover for typing the newsletters, and Gail Arnold for getting them out. He also thanked the board for coming up with good program ideas. In the April meeting, B.J. Miller will present Roaming Morgan Township Part 2, In May, Jeff Larsch will talk about his latest book. Today, Brad Spurlock will present a program on Smokey Austin. There will be an open house following today's meeting until 1 p.m. and during the Strawberry Festival on June 14 from 12 to 4. Jill's display for both will be baseball in Morgan Township. Darren Cliff, park project manager, talked extensively about projects which are finished, including benches and walking trails, and the progress of those to be done in the Morgan Township Community Park. Among the many upcoming projects are the Memorial Tree Program and various gardens. He noted an ongoing need for donations.
Okay. Any additions or corrections? If not, they'll stand as read. John, you want to give us the treasurer's report? Oh, and I'll pass out the signature sheet while he's talking.
I'm sorry, I completely forgot about the meeting last month. It seems like a lot of you have forgotten you've already paid your dues. Over 20 people paid their dues the second time. What we're planning to do is tag those when we send out the begging slip in November or December to notify you've already paid. And if you've already paid and you pay again, that will be considered a donation. So, the report since our last meeting in November, we're talking $714. And that was mostly membership dues and donations plus $29
have to add, after we missed John last month and I was worried about him, I got an email from him after the meeting, and he says, this type of behavior will not be tolerated in the future. So, John, we're glad to see you here. All right. As always, I got the attendance sheet going around. Also, as always, we're so thankful to be able to use the building up here at the trustees. Let us use. We're also the technology that we can use to have, they can improve what our speakers can do, and we thank you. Read the list, everybody I was thanking last month, and they're doing it this month, and we really appreciate all of the help. I can always use the help, and Shirley's got the cookies here, there, Midge, and had her lined up, and be sure to do your cookies and coffee today. Like I said, with our news releases and that, everybody's been really big help. And the board's just been great. The one thing I wanted to tell you, if you notice, Jill's not here today. There's some kind of meeting in Hamilton where if she's able to go, she was president of something up there forever, and they're giving her a plaque. And she was gung-ho to go. However, she's not feeling very good. She was on 2 canes when I talked to her yesterday, so she didn't know if she could make it or not. But knowing Jill, I think she's probably up there. All right, and we're really thankful for everything she's done in the past. Her and John, they're real heroes to us. Just give you upcoming events. We got BJ on a return engagement today, and set the mood by, I saw he drove one of his newer cars today and parked it out there to get us in the mood. Jeff Larsh, our author that we've had several times, he's coming in May. He's having a little bit of a panic attack. The books are supposed to be in by now, and he's hoping the books will be here by the time he talks in May. But obviously, he should know what he wrote about so he can still talk to us. But he's hoping to have the books and have them on sale for us when he shows up. He's local, and he's a great guy, and we really appreciate him helping us out. After the meeting today, of course, there's an open house, and we also got one on June 14th when the Strawberry Festival is down at Shandon. And June 21st, mark this one because I know some of this is your favorite one. Joyce Lovins is coming out, and she's going to be Benjamin Harrison's wife. She went to Miami University, and there's a lot of local history into that, and it's pretty neat. And so I know you're going to like that. And just for a couple of you that were asking me, in July, I'm supposed to talk about Walt Westridge and how you get a building named after you. So I'm supposed to talk about Dad, and of course, baseball was part of his thing with the Little League, and I've been trying to get a hold of as many of the guys that play ball for us to maybe show up, and so that should be a lot of fun. The ones of us are still sane. We could tell you some good stories. Okay. If not, we'll have our speaker, and or we can do community events now. Is there any community events coming up?
Hey, Leland?
Jeff?
Just wanted to remind everybody, a week from today, it's going to be the Easter egg hunt. So if you have any grandkids or kids or anybody that might be interested in that, we just want them out and watch. This should be a great time. It'll be our first event for the township on the new park and trail, so it'll be one for the record.
Okay, Jeff. And for Okeana Methodist, I'll tell you that at 1 o'clock we have an Easter egg hunt that we've been doing for 50 years. So we'd be glad to have any kids that can't make this one or want to do double duty. They're welcome to us. Okay. Someone else having, yeah, John?
As Walt mentioned, the Strawberry Festival's on Saturday, June the 14th. It includes the tractor parade, vendors in the field, and the car show at the Salty Dog Museum. We still have vendor spaces in the field known as the schoolyard and in the field behind the firehouse. So if anybody's interested, just email me or
All right. If there's no other announcements, we'll have BJ take over, and we're looking for it, BJ.
Hi, everybody. I think I know almost everybody here, but for those I don't know, I'm BJ Miller, and we have Salty Dog Museum down here in Shandon and Ron's Machine Shop, and we've been around for a little while around here, but I didn't grow up in Morgan Township. I grew up north of here, but we all had the shop in Shandon. My dad started that in 1980, so before I was born. So pretty much grew up in the area. So I would hear stories of just different stuff from my grandma who grew up here, and Shirley, our cousin, and other family that was around. And that led me to start just looking around and investigating. So what I have on the presentation is it's kind of random. A lot of it I go off of stories or people tell me. Just kind of we go around and investigate. So I have a bunch of different things up here. Some of it has absolutely nothing to do with what I'm talking about today, but I brought it anyhow because I thought it was kind of cool. It's all Morgan Township. So like the shirt. I don't know if anybody knows John Fagley. He grew up in Okeana his whole life, and he has donated a whole bunch of archives that his mom collected. She saved everything that pertained to Morgan Township or people she knew. So we have fun going through there, and we gather all kinds of neat things. But this is one of the shirts from the fire department before they were managed by the trustees. The original shirt, according to him, was this one. And apparently the kids really liked it too, but they couldn't wear it to school. So version 2 is hanging there. So, but if you want to come up and afterwards and look through all this stuff, you might find some interesting stuff there. So I've lost my clicker. There it goes. See if this works. All right, so we went around. I usually get permission on where we're allowed to go, so don't go trying to investigate on your own. There's some people that don't like wanderers around, so this is just my warning. You didn't hear from me to go there, so we do contact all the property owners and ask them first. We've only been told no once. That was a couple weeks ago. So as you know, we have old cars. I like driving on old roads, and we like to find out where the old roads were. We like gravel roads and the old routes. So Morgantown's always been here lately a interest to a lot of people. So we went to find Morgantown and the road that went there. It appeared in 1936 to 1930 was the road going to Morgantown, but the town was only there for about 20 years. It was abandoned sometime between 1930 and 1958. That's the maps that I have availability of, and it disappeared on the 58 map. So I don't know when they closed it exactly, but it was sometime after 1930. So Morgantown is a ghost town of Morgan Township, and if you, it's really hard to see, and my clicker doesn't, can we turn the light off? Maybe it might show up. I got a little laser here. There. It still doesn't show up. Okay. So where it says Shandon, that is New Haven Road going into Shandon. And you see Dry Fork Creek. Number 34 is roughly where Race Lane is, and the big black line across the bottom is the Howard Road. So if you're familiar down there. But Morgan Township was, according to the biographical encyclopedia, it was located half a mile from the county line. So it's barely in Morgan Township. It was also on the northeast corner of the John Schroyer farm, which is owned by the Shakers. So as you can tell, Race Lane is still not on the map. And this was also the main road. It was called the State Road, and it was the main highway from Lawrenceburg to Oxford. So if you were traveling cross country, that's the route you came. You came through Morgantown and then followed the road north right into Tariff at the time. Anybody remember Tariff? That's Okeana. So that was the original name of Okeana. So, or in Morgantown, you could split off there and go to Shandon. 1868, now we've got Race Lane, Chapel Road, and we also have the current route of New Haven Road down to Howard, which that's what's in yellow. So the yellow roads there are the current roads. And the book also points out William Esterbrook, which is that top crooked line over there. You could see Morgantown from his house. So you do see the little black spot where it says Shakers? There's a little black spot down there. That was a house. We're not quite sure whose house that was or anything about it, but that stays on the maps for quite a while. We're trying to go find that house, which it's not there any longer, but there should be a foundation somewhere. We haven't made it over there yet. I've also been told that parts of the mill are still along the creek. So we're working on getting there. But William Esterbrook, he was a little different apparently, and he was well known for that. So I also have got a interview from John Fagley's parents that the park did, and the Esterbrooks lived there for a long time, and apparently that ran in the family. So they were all a little different, it sounds like. Did you know them, Neil? Esterbrooks? No? Okay. So it said in there that they had pie for lunch one day, and the boy wanted to take pie home to his mom or his sister, and they gave him a piece, and he put it in his pocket. So said they was the nicest people you could meet, though. So there it goes. All right. And there's that house again, Esterbrooks. This map's 1875. You can see the Society of Shakers and the Schroyer Farm. The Schroyer Farm was actually John Fagley's family, and we have the deeds to the farm and everything else up here if you want to look through it.
So with that, Lee Arnold, within the family, has been Lee Arnold.
Lee Arnold, yeah.
With that map there, BJ,
Yeah.
you say Shaker Farm.
Yep.
Is that the two Shaker houses that are still there?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that gives you
So there was another Shaker farm besides those two. There was a North. This is the North family, yeah. Yep. And they actually called that, where the town was, they actually called that the Shaker Wasteland. So I thought it was good farmland, so. This is 1895. They had nice maps. You can see the little lines going along the creek. That's a hillside. The little curly stuff, those are woods or orchards. And then the little black squares are houses, little spots. It lists everybody's name. A lot of the names you'll recognize, they're still around. 1914 map, Appleton Farms there. You see that. Esterbrooks are still there. They still don't own the property now. I don't know if any of that family's around or not. And can still see the Esterbrooks on that 1925 Aloysius Hesselbrock. I know the Hesselbrocks well. $1930. Still in the same spot. Map still goes there. But it showed up all the way through until 1958. There you can see that the road has changed. It's cut off. We got the roads that we know today. The dead end part of Chapel, Race Lane, and New Haven. All right, so This is aerial view, but there, that helps. So that's it today. A lot of the property lines are still in the same spot, which I find that quite interesting. So you can usually identify where the locations of everything are. So after going through all the maps, we got in our cars and we headed up there. And we found the road. It took the Hesselbrocks helping us. It's a little growed up, but we could find it. We had our metal detectors. We have our own archaeological team that we've developed, I think. There's a big ravine. You go to the end of Chapel Road, and there's a big, huge ravine now. I don't think it was quite that large back then. It'd been tough to get through. And then on the other side of that ravine is the old road. And you can see it really well on modern maps even. And when you're there, you can see where the old route was with tree lines, field lines, property line. There's us tromping down the old road. There's a fence row runs right along it. Most of it is down under the brush. We had metal detectors so we could find that. You can kind of see the low part of the path there. It's a little hard with all the honeysuckle, but and if you look in the background there is the dry fork. So we're up on a pretty big hill. And it just went gradual down the hill. That one's a little blurry. That one's cleared out a little bit more. They are logging that area, so the road is actually somewhat cleared out in some spots. Like I said, we had our metal detector, and these were treasures that we found along the road. Probably the neatest one was the belt buckle, or shoe buckle. It's brass. Anybody know what the little square things are? They're over here. They're little tiny hunks, weird shape. Those are square, handmade nails. We found the site of an old log house, which isn't on the map, or a cabin or a house of some sort. We found most of the stuff in that. The big bolt. And we think we know what this little piece is. Anybody know? Recognize it at all? It was one of the most prized possessions of the time. It was your bed. So I think this is a bed socket. Your bed was one of the most expensive things you would have owned. When the firemen would actually go into a burning house, they had a bed key to take your bed apart and throw it outside so you could save your bed. They didn't save that one. So, unfortunately, that was as close to Morgantown as we could get. We're working on getting on both sides of the creek, and hopefully when the water goes down, we'll be able to roam through the creek and maybe find some remnants. Back in the 90s, I think they said there was still remnants of logs and different stuff. They would actually float logs down Dry Fork, which I didn't think it got that high, but in the springtime they said it would. So where did Morgantown go? It was the size of Okeana, so it was a pretty good sized town. Okeana of the time. It was comparable. It was, like I said, along the main road from Lawrenceburg to Oxford. It was called the State Road. That was the mail route. That was the main route. That road also went to Okeana, Southwind Road, where the trestle is. The trestle wasn't there at the time. You went under under the trestle, and that road went all the way north to Northwind. There was actually even a schoolhouse along the route. A lot of the names of the people that lived in that town, they still stayed in the area and came from the area. So Scipio, Alert, another ghost town of Alert. You find their names continuing on in the area. What I found was quite interesting. There was Morgan and Crosby Townships went together and formed the Union Library, and they kept that at Smith Mill, which was the mill in Morgantown. So there was a public library in the mill. I don't know if it was the first one or not, but they got 60 some shares at $3 a share from the state to purchase books for the library. And there's even a list of all the books they purchased. But that was 1821. So talking about mills, I've read that there was 2 mills in Morgantown, a sawmill and a grist mill. There was about maybe 9 on Dry Fork in Morgan Township at the time. Well, that's quite a bit of mills in a small area. Earliest one was a 1810 with an 18-foot overshoot wheel, like the one in the picture there. That was up by Scipio. I'd like to see if that was still there. We haven't been up there. Is it still there? The foundation. They said the most remarkable mill was David Griffith's tub-type sawmill. This is a picture I stole from Smoky Mountains. So right there in section 22, the sawmill, that was where the tub mill was. It's the 1836 map. You can see the log meeting house to the right there. That would have been Hickory Chapel on Chapel Road. William Bebb, who was the first landowner of Morgan Township, or Edward Bebb, I'm sorry. He was the first landowner. His son was William. And then the other green spots are Indian mounds, which I talked about them last time. And then Tariff Post Office up on the Jenkins farm. And if you notice the road, that doesn't go nowhere near where the roads are now. Here's a couple other mills along Dry Fork. This would be more towards the end of Weaver Road and 126. Alert had a carding mill. Anybody know what carding mill is? We got quilters here, right? So that would be pulling the wool. Grist mill, flaxseed oil mill, that was very popular at the time. There was a few of them. And a fulling mill. Anybody know what a fulling mill is? This one I thought was a weird name for a mill, but that's where they made wedding dresses and tuxedos. I don't know why they called it a mill, but apparently it turned into an old house after it was no longer serving for wedding purposes. And then sawmills. Shandon area only had one sawmill from what I found. And there was 2 or 3 mills in Morgantown. So the other thing I think is kind of interesting is log houses. So I keep citing the 1882 book. This is the 1882 cyclopedia. This is all about Butler County, this whole book is. But all the townships are broke apart in there. And in 1882, they came through and interviewed people and got stories and wrote their stories down. And there's a lot of very random things in there. And I find them quite interesting. So that's one guide that we use to go roaming around trying to find stuff. But there was, in 1882, that said there was 3 original log houses still left in the township. California Pike near Biddinger's Sawmill, which I assume California Road, and New Biddinger's down in Crosby Township. I assume that, but I found out that we were wrong on that. Okeana, North McLean Street. Nobody has ever heard of North McLean Street. We have no idea what North McLean Street is. It may have been an error. That's what's listed, though. The Armans did live there, but in that area. But we also found from one of the old deeds over here, Okeana-Drewsburg Road used to be called Macedonia Pike. So we're thinking maybe it was just an error of translation, possibly. And then on the old Atherton farm, northwest of New London. So then I had to go figure out where all these places were. So we'll start with the first one. Goes California Pike, Bittinger Sawmill, built by Reuben George, owned by Samuel DeArmond. Well, the Georges, where are they at? Oh, this is where we were looking down. There's no Georges down on California. If you notice, California Road's not there. California Road would be that line running between number 30 and 29, all the way down. You see the schoolhouse there, listed there at the top of section 31. That is the schoolhouse on California Road that's still there and somebody lives in. So the road did not run anywhere near where it does now. Alert New London Road would have been that road coming out over there to the schoolhouse. So I did find Reuben George by the George Cemetery. That was their farm up that way. That was also the main road to Scipio of the time. And then that was 1836. And then, come on, change. There it goes. And there's Samuel DeArmond. So we talked to the family in that area, and they had no idea of any log houses in that area. So if anybody lives out that way and you're roaming around and know of any old log houses around, let me know. Or if you find an old foundation someplace. But we talked to people that have grew up there for a long time and been in the same family. Property's been owned by the same family a long time, and none of them knew that. But they did tell me that when they were plowing one time, they dug up a big rock. So last time we were looking for a big rock that the Indians may have used, and there was a circle layer of rocks under it with a big flat rock on top. They did find one near that property, so it wasn't the one we were looking at Midge's place. We were over her farm last year looking for that one, but we never did find that either. The second log house on North McLean Street, we assume was Macedonia Pike. The only thing we could come up with is I got a picture of an old log house that was tore down and moved to Governor Bebb, and that came from John Fagley when they were moving it, and there it is. The DeArmonds lived all right there by that house. I don't know if Nancy lived in there or not. I didn't know her, and I don't think anybody around here knows her. But we're assuming that might be one of the original log houses that's now out at Governor Bebb. So there's pictures of them when they were tearing it down. The third one, north of New London, which is Shandon, was on the old Atherton farm. So the little road, right there is Atherton. The little road going north of there is Buell Road. And the house that is there is also this 1875 map. The house that's there right now is the one that they're working on 126 that has the front porch off of it. A tree fell on his front porch, so he's actually rebuilding it. That's the house that's listed in this map. That house was built in the 1850s. But at the time, the log house had already been covered up and used as a barn. And we're going to get our archaeological crew out there again with their metal detectors and see if we can find it. We went through the barns, and there wasn't any log barns. So that could be anywhere on that property. But the new house is still there from 1850. So here's on the map proven that it was owned by J.P. Jones. Now J.P. Jones at this time only owns a little section, nowhere near where that house is. So we don't know if the log house was just not listed on there. I would assume it was closer to the original farmhouse. They typically were, and especially if they're using it as a barn. So, and then I don't know what property he owned in between, 1875 and 1895. It moved around. J.P. Jones earlier owned property north of there. So if you know of any little log houses, we're going to try to record them. There are a few of them around. So we're looking for original log houses. The picture you see in this, we found by mistake last year. We were looking for an Indian mound, and I was told this is an original 2 Morgan Township log house, and it's up in the woods where you will never find it. It was pretty neat, but it was down along a main road to Scipio. It's a dead end now with an Indian mound right down the road. And it did have somebody living in it until a few years ago. I don't think I would, but it was a little rough. So one of the other questions we get a lot of is, where was the depot? Because most of us are too young to know where the depot is, or was. So we went researching and investigating and exploring the depot. And we found where it was. And if you notice on this picture, there's 2 sets of tracks. So they had a siding there. When the trains would come through, the other train could pull off. And if also the depot is up on stilts. The flat part is up against the track. And in this picture, you can see the mill sticking up above the depot, or the elevator. So there's Lizzie and Chip. They're standing at the depot. So if you notice the gravel there is very wide. There's only one track through there now, but the existing track is built up, and I'll show you a picture here coming up. The old railroad ties are still there. And they went pretty much right down the middle of where the track is. Another picture of the depot, a little blurrier picture. We have the big Okeana sign. You can go down to the museum today and see the Okeana sign hanging in the museum. This is the depot next to the mill. So that's looking out across 126 now. There's a barn right there below it and a little shed. I don't know what year this picture is, but it's pretty early. There, I zoomed in on the depot. You can see the stilts there on the road side of it. I always tell him I'm putting his picture in here to make him come, but that's John Fagley, and he still don't show up, but I forget the dog's name. But, that's where John grew up. He calls it the Pink House in Okeana, right there at the fork in the road. But you can see the old barn and the little building next to it, and the depot is still up there on the hill. What year would that be, Neil? That'd be in the...
How old would you say he is on that picture, about 5?
Yeah. Be in the 50s.
That would be about
Late 40s? Yeah. Yeah. So while we were up there, the daffodils were blooming. So somebody planted a lot of flowers around the depot when it was there. And some other things coming up there. But you can kind of see the corner. There's wood sticking out there. That was a corner of something. I don't know exactly what, but this is the area of the depot. It's all grown up now, where the building once stood, and you can't really tell foundations. It didn't really have a foundation, so it was up on stilts. You can see on the right there, there's a corner of rocks. They're all stacked up, and that's what they built the depot on. And then there's some wood there that was bolted together into a corner as well. There's Lizzie standing next to, I don't know if it was a milepost marker. It was originally painted, and there's no markings on it still. So not quite sure what was on it, but that post would have been, I believe, right behind the barn in the other picture. And then where the wires are on the poles, some of the poles are still up there with the glass insulators. Come on. All right, so we're pretty much standing behind where the mill was. And if you notice, there's railroad ties there on the right where that big W sign is. That is the original railroad ties for the siding track that would have went right in front of the depot. So they're still there. What they did is they filled that in with gravel and then put the new railroad track right down the middle, right on top. There's also controllers there on the left, ruins of them. They probably had lights. And where that little dip is in the track, that is where the track split originally. There's lots of beer bottles and beer cans up there from kids hanging out. This was taken, I believe, from the front porch of the Pink House, John's Pink House. Are you in there, Neil? No. Have you seen this picture? Okay. There's the old barn, and that there's a little building next to there selling baby chicks. And if you notice, there's a ramp in the hillside there. Behind it, that was the driveway to get to the depot. It ran behind that barn. Because there's pictures of a bunch of trucks up there at the elevator.
Right there, where you see the barn, Warren Mahler had a feed mill. He fenced that off one year and bought a bunch of fur rows, mule donkeys. And Mr. Fager bought one and took it up his grandpa's farm. And it's hard to decide which one was more stubborn.
That's where John gets it from. Also in this picture, that's a 57 Pontiac. That was John's dad's. And to the right, above the little boys marching there, see that white concrete thing with a flag on it right there at the corner? That's the driveway to the mill that's still down there in Okeana. So that kind of, if you're down there, you can kind of piece that together where that was. So there you can see on the right side the corner post, corner of the driveway up to the elevator. The blocks that are there, that was a building that was built in there, I guess, after that last picture. I don't know what that was. They had a... Yeah. So to the left of there and above is where the depot was. And that's right there in the fork of the road. There's the mill. That's a pretty good picture of the mill. And you would drive up this ramp to the left and go inside and out the other end of it and down.
That's where they'd be way at. You go
Yeah.
underneath the roof there, and that's where they'd weigh you at.
Yeah.
Maybe 5 feet or 7 feet or livestock.
Right.
You had a load and then you unload it, and then you weigh your truck again, and you know how much.
So this picture is about late 60s. That's a 1966 Galaxy in the corner there. We were able to figure that one out. So if you go down there now, telephone poles don't really move. So if you notice where all the telephone poles are between the two pictures, they're pretty much in the same spot. Let's see if I can get it to go back there. So there's that big pole right in the middle there and the two on the other side. So kind of neat that you can see right where it was at. This is still taken from the Pink House in Okeana, where John grew up. Here's a nice cold picture. Anybody know what that ugly car is there? That was a a 1950 Nash covered in snow. Looks like the hood's off of it, so it must have. Nashes, they wasn't well known to be a good car. But Morgan's store, the Okeana post office. You can see the mill on the right, or on the left, I'm sorry. Mahler's, it says, I think at the top. There's also 2 houses there on the left that are no longer there. One of those was Florin Mahler's house. And there you are today, or yesterday. So they have the porch removed off of the old store and post office now. Back to the way it was originally. They've done a huge renovation on that building. It's come a long way. John's family used to own it, and it was Fagley's. There's still the post office there. There's us driving up one of the old roads when we were headed up to Morgantown. So you can turn the lights on if you want. So a couple neat things that I have up here that we found. You guys are welcome to read through this. This was a oral history with Leonard and Thelma Fagley. Somebody from the park interviewed them. This was done in the 90s, 1993, just before Leonard passed away. And they talk about the whole area down there around Morgantown and where the roads were, and you'll recognize a lot of names in there. That's pretty interesting. If you want to come up and look through the book, the 1882 book, you're welcome to. Some other artifacts that we found, I have laying here on the corner. That was while we were walking. We went up to the Jenkins Cemetery. We did find the stones up there. And we also went down through some creeks, and you'll find some fossils. There's some flint. I think that might be an axe from the Native Americans. Axe head. So if you want to come up and look at that. There's also some pictures up here on the counter. And some other stuff. If you want to read through the box, you can. So we have all kinds of interesting things. So one other thing we found, just randomly found, that I thought was interesting is there was a big fire in Shandon, 1900. Majority of Shandon, or a big chunk of Shandon, burnt down. So St. Al's Church burnt. That was when it was rebuilt in 1901 or 1900. It was originally from 1867. I forget what the marker says at the front of the new St. Al's Church, but that's why it says rebuilt. It burnt, along with a lot of barns at the time. So, and also another cool story, some of you all might know, there was the Okeana Bank got robbed. Lady from Ross came up in her pink Cadillac. After depositing money there, she decided she wanted it out, but used her gun, robbed him, and they caught her in New Baltimore. But we have, if anybody has any questions on that, you're welcome to come up and look around. Yeah. That is behind Burwinkle's on Howard Road, the dead end part of Howard, so that's the Shaker Farm. So that, I think that's mainly a farm road. It may have been one of their original roads back in the time, but that one wasn't necessarily on the map. But it was a nice road that they still use. But it went up there to the main road into Morgantown. Yeah.
I was walking behind Morgan School.
You'll have to take me back here. Yeah, we'll go back there. There's also a Quonset hut back here somewhere. It was. That's what I was always told. That's what Dad called it. And that's what Shirley's always called it. There was a Quonset hut back there across the creek. So, people lived in it. Yeah, they lived in it. So we have to go the Quonset hut behind the Morgan School. You remember it? So Shirley was back there. Dad was back here when he was a kid. But you have to cross quicksand to get to it now. So, but we haven't been there. We figured we'd be stuck.
The name, the Army, were
Yeah.
they involved in Central Chevrolet in Hamilton?
I have no idea on that.
That I know of. But the only the Army that was still hanging in there as I grew up across the road here on 26. That farm was the Army farm.
Yeah.
But like I said, yeah, the Army's Hill.
Yep, the Armin's Hill. Yep. Yeah. The Minguses. Yeah. Yeah. So the whole part of the town is owned currently by the Mingus family. Yeah. So we're working on getting a hold of them. We've talked to them once, and they were waiting until they were in the area, and they were going to take us back there.
Morgantown, basically, when the Shakers bought some of it, and of course they're in Hamilton County, I think most of the stuff starts shifting over to the main, the Shakers building for us, and that's how it kind of just
Yeah.
deteriorated, and the business was lost.
Right. And they bypassed the driving through the creek. They didn't have to have a bridge that way. So I think with the creek coming up and it was the main route, they really just bypassed the town and came straight up into Okeana. So,
One thing you said about the Shakers too, they were famous for the apple trees.
yeah.
They had a great fruit market, and even the stuff I've even read where they interviewed, reported if you didn't have a whole lot of money, and you went, they'd let the kids pick up the apples that fell out of the trees that were bruised up. They'd let you take them home. But the good apples, they sold at market.
Yeah, they were known for their seeds. And actually, if you ever been to the Shaker farm down in Kentucky, Pleasant Hill, they've put a lot of money into that place. That's actually been paid for by for donation from Eli Lilly, which is in Indiana, and they don't typically send their money out of state. The way they get money in Kentucky is that Eli Lilly is still using Shaker recipes for their medicine that they still produce. So they still give them money to the Shaker. Yeah. So, pretty interesting. They were involved in a lot. So. All right. Well. Yep. So, thank you all.
One other historical note, that little cabin that they moved up to Bev Park that he's got a picture of, that the famous Greg Combs lived in that house. So those of you know Greg, a teacher at Ross Junior Middle School, and baseball player with me and Daryl. And like I said, so when he ran for president of the junior class, I kept telling him, the log cabin president, we got him elected. What a campaign manager I was. Okay, any other business good for the order? Thank for the great turnout. BJ, it was fun again. The only thing I kind of feel bad about is when they're talking things about, 1900 or before, and they turn around and say, well, Neil, do you remember that? That's a little tough to take, but I got tough skin. All right, have a good, safe trip home. And I hope to see you all. Don't forget the museum's open if you want to see the museum. And have a safe trip. Thank you.